On the 16th of December 1995, Orlando Pirates traveled to Abidjan in the Côte d'Ivoire to face Asec Mimosas in the final of the CAF Champions League. Having survived the grueling preliminary rounds, 90 minutes was all that stood between Pirates and glory, but the odds were stacked against them. 2 weeks earlier, the two teams had played a 2-2 draw in the first leg of the final, played in Soweto's FNB Stadium. Having squandered an early 1-0 lead, Pirates gifted the Ivorians two precious away goals. Worse still, their captain, Innocent Nwangu, had been sent off for violent conduct, and their coach, Joe Frickleton, had been fired before the final encounter in Abidjan. Shorn of their captain and coach, Pirates were faced with the seemingly impossible task of needing to score at least one goal without conceding any against a team spurred on by vociferous hometown support. It was a classic David and Goliath struggle, and with the battle lines drawn, the Buccaneers and the fans back home in South Africa held their collective breath.
They missed their chances in the first leg. They could easily have won that game. And once having drawn 2-2, that was the end of the road for them as far as most people were concerned. Abidjan, very difficult undertaking. Few teams win away there, and it just doesn't seem likely that Pirates could come back with a victory.
Kahle kahle ngikhumbula ukuthi ngaleso sikhathi bekubhalwe kumaphepha amakhulu ukuthi iOrlando Pirates angeke iphumelele maya eAbidjan. Ngikhumbula kahle ukuthi ngaleso sikhathi ichairman yeOrlando Pirates wayenkhoza waphumisa ama-players wabo isizumbulu semali sama-bonuses ukuthi mabangafika lapha bahlule umdlalo bazawuthola imali eningi. Mawukhuluma nabadlali abaningi beOrlando Pirates abanjengo Jerry Skhosana no William Okpara uzothola umlando ukuthi isimo sasingesihle kahle ngaso sonke isikhathi amaqembu aseSouth Africa mayephumele ngaphandle ayengatholi ukuphathwa ngendlela engcono kwakuba into leyo ibenza ukuthi bakuthunazeke kancane kodwa ngoba indlela abadlali bePirates ababeyiyona ngaleso sikhathi babazi ukuthi lokho ababekwenza babengakwenzela iqembu labo kuphela lokho babekwenzela isizwe sonkana seSouth Africa babekwenzela isiginya sonke se-Southern Africa. So bebefika lapha babazi ukuthi babengayeli ukuthi baya kuma 5-star hotel bakuyi holiday or anything like that babeyolelwa izwe.
For the first time a South African team actually gets to the final. At that moment, I'm talking from the historic perspective and a personal perspective as a football player. At that moment, you don't care who's sitting on your bench. You don't care who is in your starting 11. All you care about is as soon as that kick-off starts, everything gets nullified. But the question could have been, you have Oscar Fulone, who was the coach of Asec Abidjan, Argentinian, very strong, very technical. So the Pirate team, they're going to be cautious, but very, very much confident that they did enough at home.
From the opening whistle, Pirates were put under the most intense pressure imaginable. The brave Pirates defense had to counter wave after wave of Ivorian attacks on their goal. In the final analysis, Asec had an astonishing 28 attempts on goal, 8 of which were saved by goalkeeper William Okpara. One was blocked by a defender, with the others wide off the mark. But the steel that had been built into the Pirates team proved insurmountable. The Buccaneers played with guts, determination, and a whole lot of luck.
Mesefika emdlalweni kwagcwele enkundleni. Kwagcwele kakhulu enkundleni. Ngicabanga ukuthi into eyenza futhi nokuthi iPirates imisele kakhulu ukuthi yathi nibuka yabona ngathi izodlala neKaizer Chiefs ngoba imbala yeopposition yayifana nembala yeKaizer Chiefs and uyazi ukuthi kwenzakalani phakathi kwePirates neChiefs kakhulukazi ngaleso sikhathi kwangathelelwana kahle amanzi kakhulu.
The game started. Asec Abidjan had to score first. So in football, when you are playing in that type of a game, you have your supporters, they're screaming, they're shouting, they're singing. So the stadium, the atmosphere was amazing. It was a real African football festival. Asec Abidjan is a great team. They had just John Fofana, who was the legend of Ivorian football team. I remember they have Fofana's younger brother. They had a great coach sitting on the bench. bench. So the quality of the team was there because they went all the way to beat in the final. So it was a great team.
A number of opportunities where Asec Abidjan should have scored. They hit the crossbar so many times. They were always threatening, sitting in the Orlando Pirates half for most of the game.
Ironically, they were outplayed for 89 minutes in that game. They seemed to be living on a wing and a prayer. They defended desperately, Mark Fish and company. They never gave up trying. They survived with the help of someone up there.
In the midfield, you had Mutales, you have Goran Ibrahim start pushing from the defense. So Pirates were very, very much under pressure. 73rd minute, you left with 12 minutes to go. The home support at that time, Asec, they start celebrating. There is no way Pirates can score.
You had this bizarre situation of a long clearance downfield, just aimless kicking basically, two defenders going for the ball, running into each other, knocking each other over, and Jerry Skosana picking up the pieces and gratefully scoring the winning goal.
Yasebenza yonke Pirate njengeqembu kwaze kwafika kule clearance yathi suke emuva lapha mpakanye ibhola ama defender amabili ashayisana la wela uSkhosana hayi ke wayethenjiwe wathi bona ngibulala washaya ladla ibhakane yadla South Africa yadla Southern Africa babuya bezekhaya bamaqhawe.
As Mark Fish take the ball, put it up, there is no danger. I think the goal was scored almost in the top bottom, if I do remember, and it was like careful stuff. All you hear in the stadium is quiet. Nothing happening. Everything stands still.
And now we want a young. Inselento ngonyalo nangujere bajika bobabili besaliswa mbetlaphana nangunozile qhamuka wazulu umntaka Skosana wathibona ngiqulele yanselento.
It was the first time that a Southern African team won the African Championship.
When Orlando Pirates won the Champions League in 1995, it was a remarkable triumph for South African football. This marked the first international achievement for a South African club since the country's readmission to FIFA in 1992. The nation celebrated. But for Orlando Pirates, it was the culmination of club chairman Irvin Khoza's plan that transformed a team from one that had been bound for relegation from the NSL to Champions League winners in just 4 years.
The Pirates' success in the club championship, which has been the only major success in that competition for a South African team, basically started in the late 1980s when Irvin Khoza came back to the club. During his absence, Pirates were almost relegated in the early 1980s. Statistically, they should have gone down to the lower division. The league, in its wisdom or otherwise, manipulated Pirates staying in the Premier Division.
What the chairman of Orlando Pirates did, I don't know if he did it consciously or unconsciously. He went on, he bought all Dynamo's players, good players. He went on to buy Cosmos players, good players. Among them, Mark Fish. Among them, Joel Moeti, Goran Ibrahim, Elmen Mukalele, Gavin Lane. He brought the goalkeeper from Nigeria. He had the Galacticos. He had the top South African crop of players.
Ngikhumbula ukuthi in that time, during the revival, Orlando Pirates managed to go into the final of the BP Top 8 against Witbank Aces in a rainy afternoon at the FNB Stadium, and of course they lifted that trophy, and that was the beginning of the revival of Orlando Pirates.
Ngokuphumelela ititle ye-NSL ngonyaka ka-1994, i-Orlando Pirates yaba sezingeni lokudlalela i-Champions League. I-Champions League kude kube ngoku lukhuphiswano lwamaqela kudidi oluphezulu lwebhola ekhatywayo. Akukho iqela laseMzantsi Afrika elake lasondela nokusondela ekuphumeleleni ngoba ibisoloko ibanjwa ngamaqela asempuma Afrika njengo-Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt and Cote d'Ivoire. I-Pirates noxa yawabetha nje amaqela kweli afana no-Kaizer Chiefs, Sundowns kunye ne-Cosmos, ingaba izawuqhuba njani xa ijongene nezigantsontso ezifana ne-Al Ahly, iZamalek okanye iRaja Casablanca?
1995, the Galacticos come to Orlando Pirates. They got themselves a regroup, but with winners. The best thing you wish to do is to play your first game at home. The draw comes, Orlando Pirates, the first round game, they have to go to Nigeria. They're the champion of Africa. Everybody's talking about Nigeria 1994. South Africa got reintegrated to FIFA and CAF. All our away games for Bafana, we lost. And they call us 4x4 because we keep beaten 4-0 here, 4-0 there, 4-0 here. Pirates have to go and play away. Where? In Nigeria.
We knew that Nigeria were a powerhouse in African football, and just going there and getting that credible draw against BCC Lions with that goal from Bruce Ramokhadi really propelled Orlando Pirates to believing that they could be African champions.
I must admit that it was a well-earned draw, and I think it was a question of hanging in there and have a draw at home, or even if we had lost, not even with a bigger margin. But I think at home it gives us a better edge, in a sense that given a better pitch, we can knock the ball around and play our style.
Iqela laseMzantsi Afrika lide lafikelela kwinqanaba lokugqibela kwi-Champions League. Phaya kula midlalo banyanzelisa inqaku enqakwini kwi-draw bedlala ne-BCC Lions eNigeria bejongene nengathethekiyo impathombi. Baguqula ukubethwa kwabo ngamanqaku amabini kwelinye eLibreville ngokuphumelela ngamanqaku amathathu eqandeni apha kwelomzantsi Afrika bade bafikelela ekubeni ngabadlali ibhola abayakuphila ngonaphakade. Their opponents in the final were Cote d'Ivoire's Asec Mimosas, who they would face first at Soweto's FNB Stadium and then away in Abidjan 2 weeks later. With the country abuzz with excitement, Pirates geared up for the first leg of the final, and they couldn't have gotten off to a better start.
Orlando Pirates have the first leg to play at home because most of their time they play away. So in that final, they had to play at home first. So because they were able to win all the games at home, they were very comfortable. But what they did not know is the history of Asec Abidjan. They were playing against a strong team. Well, against a Lion, with the play in Nigeria, it was not a very strong team, but it was a good team because they beat Ghana. And then they went on to play in the semi-final, they played against Express. Express was the only strong team that we can say that Orlando Pirates play against. So when they went to play against Asec Abidjan, I think they did not know much about Asec Abidjan. So they were very impressed. After they score a goal, they realized that Abidjan keep coming to them, and then Abidjan got those 2 goals. But yet, Orlando Pirates did well because they got that crucial goal, which was an equalizer goal, which was 2-2.
Ekufikeni khona kulowo mdlalo njengoba ngisho nje ukuthi kwakunzima impela, kodwa iPirates emehlweni abantu abaningi baseNingizimu Afrika yayisiyamaqhawe nje ngoba ukuthi bakwazi ukuhamba indlela la kuqala khona kuma preliminaries behamba beze befika kuma quarter final kuma semi final ukufika kwi-final ngokwakho kukodwa nje kwakumsebenzi omuhle. Kodwa into esisho ukuthi uma ngabe amasosha eseyilwile impi azafika esigabeni esingaka sekufike ekugcineni sekusele nje ukuthi bahlama ukugcina.
I-Orlando Pirates yaqhubekela phambili emva kokulahlekelwa ngucaptain nomqeqeshi wayo yaya kuphumelela i-Champions League ngonyaka ka-1995. Kumzuzu watshintsha isimo somdlalo kwelasemzantsi, amaBuccaneers aphikisa ingcaphephe xa ebetha i-Asec Mimosas ngeyona goal ibalulekileyo kaJerry Skhosana. A 1-0 win on the night and a 3-2 aggregate score confirmed Pirates as kings of African club football and a place in the South African Football Hall of Fame. Looking back on an achievement that happened more than a decade ago, how great of an accomplishment was it?
It was a huge accomplishment, Mawibuga, from the perspective that in 1990, the following 1996, South Africa hosted the African Nations Cup. the bulk of the team that played in that Orlando Pirates team, some of them played in the Bafana Bafana Reds. But again, in giving South Africa the confidence that they could stand themselves, they could stand against the best on the African continent.
It seemed as though the seeds had been planted for this wonderful era of soccer in South Africa, where South Africa was going to be champions of Africa, something that we'd always imagined was going to happen during the period of isolation. And then once we returned and we received some very rude lessons from Zimbabwe first of all, and then from Nigeria, and realized that we really weren't nearly as good as we imagined we were.
Lokho-ke kwase kwenza ukuthi isimo ezweni, ithemba ezweni, balandeli bebhola nabangasiba abalandeli bebhola baqale bathi siyayisupport iBafana siyafisa ukuthi iphumelele ukuqhubekela nje phambili. Lokho kwayinikeza i-country impetus ebaluleke kakhulu ngoba ekugcineni iNingizimu Afrika kwaba yona eyikhondla ze-Afrika yonke. Ngasho ukuthi ikhona imbewu eyayitshalekile kulokho akwenzeke ngo-95 ku-Orlando Pirates.
Winning the Champions League, Pirates announced South Africa as a power in African football. It was a remarkable achievement considering that up until 4 years previously, no South African team had ever faced international competition. The Pirates' win seemed like a new dawn in South African football. Surely more success would soon follow.
This is one of the most important days in the history of South Africa. This has indicated that South African football has come of age, and this is the sweetest tonic that we needed before the Africa Cup of Nations.
Pirates winning the Champions League probably rates second only to the Bafana success in the Nations Cup. It was a milestone, and there were no milestones to follow afterwards.
South African football lost its way along the way, and by so saying, I'm saying that if we look in terms of the national success coming on the backdrop of Orlando Pirates winning the Champions League, we have to realize that it was through doing well on the African continent, through club championship, for us to do well on the national scale.
Before I can do any presentation, I'd like to do this as a symbol of reconciliation to my friends and my colleague, because this victory is for all South Africans. I give this Mr. Mtaung this jersey.
This is a very, very emotional occasion for me. Having been a Pirates myself, having gone through, the club, I was not privileged like some of these guys, all these guys in front of you here. It was during those dark days in our lives when we were not part of the international community. However, it is gratifying to see that, in fact, having laid the foundation that we did in those days, that these heroes here today went on and went ahead to give this whole region, this entire region here, the dignity that it deserves.
As South African, we're very, we are childlike going into international football. The success came to us quickly, and we cannot say easily, but it came quickly. And when something comes quickly to you, it seems become very easy.
Uma sesiphuma sile ngaphandle, impa sikwazi ukuyimela, impa sikwazi ukuyibamba ngoba one abadlali abazimisele, abacabanga ukuthi yini ebalekile, yini indaba ngenze lokho. Okwesibili, amaqembu wethu angicabanga ukuthi akubeka njengento ebalekile ukuthi enze igama lawo eNingizimu Afrika ngokuna lo mqhudelwano lo. Masingakwazi ukwenza lokho, sivuma ukuthi inkinga zethu iziphi, sokwazi ukuthi sithathe ixhathi eliya phambili ukuthi iziphi ke manje izinto ezizoba impendulo kule inkinga esinazo ukuze sikwazi ukuthi sibe kulela zinga leliya.
Because of the team of 1995, Orlando Pirates, we were able to see the crop of South African football players in 1996. And what happened in 1996 is not only that South Africa were able to win the CAF Championship, which is African Cup of Nations, we were able to compete and beat teams such as Tunisia, to beat a team such as Ghana. And people should understand that it was not only winning it, it was who did we compete against and who did we beat in our way to the final and to the final. So the legacy of South Africa or Orlando Pirates winning that championship, it is in conclusion the legacy of South African football.